What's up guys, Derek, moreplaysmartaids.com. Today we are revisiting the Imane Khelif debacle. This is the highly controversial boxer who won gold in women's boxing a couple months back and is highly suspected to be male, at least by many people, including the International Boxing Association that disqualified her at the 2023 World Championships based on a failed gender eligibility test where they claim it was determined that Imane has XY male chromosomes. Somehow the IOC failed to provide any adequate elucidation as to what their criteria was to allow somebody to compete as, in female boxing. And they basically just summarized and consolidated their criteria into you would be eligible as long as you were born and raised female, and it said so on your passport, and that was kind of it. So, as long as you were born and identified at birth as a female and raised as a female, we don't actually care if you have internal testes. Is indirectly what they highly suggested. It was kind of like, we don't have any, there's no duty on our end to actually determine if you're a male or female, or if there's some androgen insensitivity in question and it's a spectrum and there's some sort of nuanced interpretation that has to happen here. Rather, were you born and raised as a woman? We're not going to discriminate. Here you go. So highly controversial and was not clarified much. So it left, everyone to scrutinize and people to run wild with their speculation, as you would imagine. Now, even more controversially, apparently a medical report was leaked that confirms the XY chromosomes that the IBA had alleged, a year prior, and testicles. So this is an article on redux.info. A shocking new development has emerged in the case of the Algerian boxer Imane Khelif, after a French journalist reportedly gained access to a damning medical report revealing Khelif has testicles. The news comes months after Khelif seized a gold medal in women's boxing at the Paris Olympics. The report was drafted in June of 2023 via collaboration between the Kremlin, I'm going to butcher this, hospital in Paris, France, and the Mohamed Lamine Debaghin Hospital in Algiers, Algeria, drafted by expert endocrinologists Soumaya Fadela and Jax Young. The report reveals that Khelif is impacted by 5-alpha reductase deficiency, a disorder of sexual development that is only found in biological males. So as you can see here, it is from the medical report and you can see right here, 5-alpha reductase type 2. The genetic abnormality influences the normal development of a child's sexual organs. At birth, male babies impacted by 5-alpha are often incorrectly assigned female due to the presence of deformed genitalia that sometimes take on the appearance of a blind vaginal pouch. The disorder development typically becomes apparent by puberty, when 5-alpha adolescents begin to experience signs of masculinization such as muscle growth, hair growth, and the absence of breast tissue development or menstruation. Without access to a proper clinical examination, males with 5-alpha may incorrectly believe they are female into adulthood. At the end of October, French journalist Jaffer Ait Aoudia, I am not going to get this right, Aoudia, obtained a copy of a thorough medical examination that was conducted on Khelif in order to verify the presence of a disorder of sexual development. According to Aoudia, the clinical report reveals that an MRI determined that Khelif had no uterus, but instead had internal testicles and a micropenis resembling an enlarged clitoris. A chromosomal test further confirmed that Khelif has an XY karyotype, while a hormone test found that Khelif had testosterone levels typical of males. Aoudia also noted that doctors suggested Khelif's parents may have been blood relatives. Sheesh. The report concludes by recommending Khelif be referred for surgical correction and hormone therapy to help him physically align with his self-perceived gender identity, and adds that psychological support would be required because the results had caused a very significant neuropsychiatric impact. Damn, dude. This report coincides with an earlier admission by Khelif's coach, Georges Cazorla, that the Algerian boxer had been subjected to an assessment at the Kremlin-based hospital after being disqualified from women's boxing by the IBA in March of 2023. So the coach tepidly conceded that the endocrinologist had determined there was a problem with Khelif's chromosomes at the time. Despite this fact, Cazorla insisted that Khelif should still be allowed to compete against females. Cazorla also stated that Khelif was placed on testosterone suppressants following the 2023 medical assessment. However, the IOC has not submitted athletes to chromosomal testing since 1999, and at the Paris Olympics, the only requirement to participate was to have a female sex marker on legal documents. So absurd. Further confirmation of the boxer's karyotype was given by Alan Abrahamson, an associate professor at the University of Southern California's Annenberg School for Communications and Journalism. In an August statement, Abrahamson said he had personally viewed the results of the hotly contested chromosomal results ordered by the IBA, which concluded the boxer's DNA was that of a male consisting of XY chromosomes. The news of Khelif's leaked medical report comes after he won gold at the Paris Olympics in the women's 66 kilogram category. During a press conference in August, the IBA repeatedly confirmed that Khelif had failed multiple chromosomal tests, but was barred from releasing the results of those tests by the Algerian Olympic Committee. Icon's co-founder Marcy Smith slammed the IOC and Algerian Olympic Committee for allowing Khelif to continue his journey to Paris gold despite being fully aware he is genetically male. So if this indeed ends up being true, which many suspected to be the case, that would be pretty horrible. You'd have not only somebody having fought women in Olympic sport, but also having essentially stolen a medal from a biological female, if this indeed is the case, because 5-alpha reductase deficiency is not something that could be chalked up to, oh, there's a nuance here in which you're probably not getting a performance enhancing advantage. Like, this is not insensitivity to androgens at the AR. This is actual deficiency of DHT solely that prevents you from having full masculinization during puberty, but you still have testosterone production of a male. You still have the infrastructure of a male. You are literally a male. You're essentially under-viralized. Like, that is the outcome of DHT deficiency. And we see this in many cases clinically as well, where you have individuals who have a mutation in the gene that encodes for 5AR and they end up with micropenises, but they still have a penis nonetheless. I think the most relevant example of a high-profile case with 5AR deficiency was Castor Semenya, and I think it's worth revisiting. I actually went over this in very elaborate detail in this video. I'm going to try to not be overly redundant, but I covered androgen insensitivity syndrome and the spectrum of it at great length in this video, and all the nuanced DSDs as well as 5AR deficiency, and what could actually be classified as unfair versus fair, and what is actually female versus not female. Like, it's not too difficult to discern what is essentially an unjustifiable advantage and a male advantage at that through a 5AR deficiency, which I cover in great depth in this video. And I also, when I describe the Castor Semenya situation, explain why I think it was justified that Castor is not allowed to compete against females. The whole suppression of testosterone, and if they should be able to compete against females after suppressing their levels, is another highly controversial, nuanced subtopic of that discussion, which I cover in the video as well. But it's a whole nother rabbit trail to go down. But at the end of the day, should anybody with a deficiency or a mutation in the gene that encodes for 5AR that results in them being heavily under-viralized through puberty be allowed to compete against females? No, you are just a male with male testosterone production with some, I suppose there could be a nuanced interpretation where if you had such structurally suboptimally functioning sexual organs that you produce inadequate amounts of testosterone to that of a female, even though you're a male on paper, then there's the discussion maybe to be had if this has been the case since, being born. But in general, with 5AR deficiency, you are lacking in the hormone that actually pushes you through full masculinization, but you are not lacking in the anabolic activity that makes you male at the end of the day. So you might end up with a micropenis, lack of temporal recession, less acne, basically under-viralized, but there is nothing to discount the fact that you have the full anabolic capacity of a male. And this is with, Castor Semenya. She was trying to justify, my internal testes should not disqualify me because I know I'm a woman and blah, blah, blah.
Being born, without the uterus, being born with internal testicles, those don't make me less a woman.
Like, at the end of the day, it's not fair for you to compete against females that are biologic females when you're a biologic male with internal testes pumping out test. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So if that is indeed the case with Imane Khelif, which we don't know, so I couldn't say for certain if that's the case, but if that is the case, this is like the most controversial of inclusion in an Olympic sport to be classified as female. Like, this is the DSD equivalent of like the most egregious overstep. This is not a complete androgen insensitivity syndrome situation. Like, this is one where you were just lacking in DHT and you have test levels of a dude, seemingly, according to the reports that we have, been leaked. So to be determined if this is actually accurate or not, but if this indeed is the case, and Imane, I think, should go out of her way to prove it to be not the case. She keeps saying she's gonna, sue people and hold them legally responsible for reporting on it. It's like, just get the fucking, actual gender assessment that would determine if this is true. Get some imaging done of your organs and prove it to not be the case. Maybe that sounds insane. Maybe that sounds like unreasonable, but at the end of the day, if you have nothing to hide and you're indeed a biologic female, you would not be worried about internal testes showing on an imaging report. So let's just fucking see it, Like, it's just kind of gone off the rails. Like, you are potentially taking away opportunities from women and punching them in the head in the ring. Like, just, fucking prove that you didn't egregiously, wrong people and potentially induce brain damage on females. Like, this should not be an over the top ask of somebody who is literally not just competing for a gold medal, but like punching females in the head. You should have to prove that you are also female in order to punch females in the head in an Olympic sport, in my opinion. But apparently the IOC thinks having a passport that says you're female is sufficient, which seems a little bit, I don't know, illogical or and at worst, pretty fucked up, let's be honest. So if it is indeed, a 5-AR deficiency, that's pretty much the worst case scenario in terms of something that could prevent you from being masculinized to a point where you might actually think you're still female, as you go through puberty, but in reality you have performance enhancing capacity, relative to females because you have male level exposure to hormones through the testosterone. Like, it's like the equivalent of putting a male on dutasteride from like a nuclear dose of dutasteride from a young age and like preventing them from actually maturing correctly. But it would not prevent them from having testosterone production. It would not prevent them from having male bones. It would not prevent them from having the psychological changes of a male. It would not prevent them from having the infrastructure of a male, the limb length, the everything that comes along with it, aside from your dick reaching full size, essentially. Like, that is basically what DHT is meant to do. It's supposed to push you through full sexual maturation and development. And without it there, you will not. But you will not be inhibited from building male level muscle. You could even subject males who are on literal hormone therapy, testosterone, to mega doses of dutasteride, and we've seen this in the literature, where they crush their DHT levels to undetectable levels and they have no significant difference in muscle mass or strength. So if you could literally nuke DHT levels to nothingness in biologic males who are on hormones or even natural and have no difference in their muscle strength or size, like, what is that to say for somebody who's competing in female sport, punching women in the head? Like, it's not a good look. Like, this is literature back. This is not an egregious, nuanced, take or anything. It's just science. Male pseudo-hermaphrodites who have a mutation in the gene that encodes for 5-AR, you'll see that, for example, here, the male on the left and the male in the center are pseudo-hermaphrodites and are cousins. The male on the right is a normal male and the brother of the affected male on the left. The affected males are more muscular. So this is actually a case where direct relatives, they have literally greater capacity to build muscle because they have none of it converting to DHT. It's all staying as testosterone or aromatizing into estrogen, but they have no beard and they lack temporal hairline recession like the DHT producing male. But notably, the affected males are more muscular, and they are still notably still male. This is not to discount the fact that they are still male. They are just classified in the literature as male pseudohermaphrodites. So would you put these guys in the ring and let them punch women in the head? No, you wouldn't. Let's be honest here. That would be insane. So hopefully that's not the case. And hopefully Imane can prove everyone wrong and just get this, clarified. The responsibility is Imane's to prove this not to be the case. Do you want people to think that you are such a monster that you're getting in the ring and punching women in the head? No, you don't. You would want to show here, look, biological female. Here's the proof. Here's my chromosomes. Here's my, you don't have to literally post images of your goddamn, private parts, but have a report that actually has reported on it legitimately. The hiding of it and the constant trying to shut people up who talk about it without just showing some proof makes it look worse and worse every time somebody talks about this. So we don't give a fuck what's on your passport. We need to know for sure that you were not actually a under-viralized male fighting people. That would be the way to prove everyone wrong. That is doubtful. And we're not, hopefully this ends up being a bogus medical report too, because that would be such a shame and a travesty if indeed it was true. So, if you want the high level scientific dissection of this situation, I highly recommend watching my first video. This was not doing the situation justice to adequately elucidate what I'm teeing up here. I was talking about 5AR deficiency and all the different DSDs, and I think I dissected in pretty sufficient detail in the video, so I'd recommend watching it if you have questions or want some clarification on the situation at large. But yeah, that's my summarized takeaway. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and what criteria do you think is reasonable for assessing if somebody is the gender they say they are when they go into sport? Should you just be able to claim it based on what you were raised as, or do you think there is some sort of legitimacy criteria that should be adopted where you might have some uncomfortable analysis occurring, but it is to confirm with scrutiny that somebody is what they say they are? Let me know. All comments help the algorithm. They're much appreciated. Like, subscribe if you want more deep dives into pharmacology, biology, endocrinology, and also some of the nuanced takes on stuff like this. I'll talk to you guys soon.